So I had a 6:30 flight on Sunday morning from New Orleans to Atlanta. And if you've ever been to Louisiana, you know that it's not just a few minutes, it's over an hour from Baton Rouge to New Orleans. And the game ended at probably around, I don't know, 11:30 their time. And our hotel was in Donaldsonville, which is about maybe 30 minutes away from Baton Rouge. So it was still over an hour by the time we were able to get from our car. Or actually, it was a rental truck. We got upgraded for free, which was nice. But it took us about maybe an hour, maybe more, to get from our parking spot back to the hotel. And by that point, it was after 12. It was almost 1. I think it was after 1 o'clock. So we just decided we weren't even going to sleep that night. We figured we would go and make the best of it and go to the Waffle House, which was right there at the exit. And that was the worst Waffle House experience that Ori James and I have ever had, otherwise known as James Lee from 843. But yeah, that was the worst Waffle House experience we have ever had. The table was disgusting. It was not being cleaned. The guy behind the counter, I think, was brand new because he kept looking at his, his sheet there where he writes the orders down, and he had it pretty close to his eyes, so either he needs glasses or he was really nervous. The staff was not what you would call patient with him, understandably so. It's a game night, and you're not that far away from Baton Rouge. And it took quite a while to get our order to the point where we had to start saying, "Where is our order?" And you don't like being like that, but at the same time, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, you're tired, you've just lost the game, and you want to go. And so we got to the airport probably at around 3:30 and didn't sleep. Got back to Columbia around 12:30 and watched some of the NFL and just decided did not have the strength for a podcast at that point. And then right after I got home, there was some pretty breaking news, which we'll get into. One piece of breaking news, which of course happened here, and then one that happened nationally. We'll get into both of those here in a little bit. But going back to the game on Saturday night, I thought Carolina ran the ball very well. I don't think anybody is surprised by that, or at least that's what I'm leading off with. I think it is very surprising, though, that Carolina was able to run the ball so successfully. But just way too many costly mistakes against a very good team in the SEC on the road, and that is a recipe for disaster, and that's what it ended up being. You go to the opening drive of the game that LSU had, and you force a 3-and-out, and you then get the ball and fumble the very first snap from scrimmage, which leads to an LSU field goal. Carolina then gets the ball back, drives down, and this is one thing that really perplexed me and really kind of had me scratching my head. It's 3rd down and 8, and you're inside the 40 of LSU, and Mike Shula dials up a quarterback draw right up the middle. To me, that signaled that he had given up on the drive, which was a very good drive, mind you. But that was just one of those that makes you want to tear your hair out because you've got some momentum. At least try to get the first down, because you are not going to win at LSU kicking field goals and trying to find weird ways to get points. You have to basically get them straight up. And it leads to a missed field goal, and what do you know, it turned out to be a pretty big a big point in the game. LSU gets 3, Carolina gets nothing. And it's just one of those nights that you just are frustrated by things like that throughout the entirety. Now, Carolina's defense actually did manage to play probably its best game of the season. To hold LSU to 20 points, especially when the offense spotted them, I believe, inside the 30, for them to be able to hold LSU to 20 points is, I would say, exemplary. Getting 3 turnovers, winning the turnover battle, mind you. The defense did all it could to give you the win. But I think the glaring thing here is the offense. Lenora Sellers, to me, is the best quarterback in the country. I say that as a Carolina fan, and I say that as someone that watches a lot of college football. I haven't seen another quarterback in the country who can do some of the things that this guy can do. But there's only so much you can do when your offensive line can't block and you feel like you're probably about to be killed on every single play. James Lee from 843 and I were looking at each other at halftime and just saying, if they don't protect, if they don't do something here, Sellers is going to get killed. But then you look at what Carolina did on the ground. That's one of the best rushing games that Carolina has had, period, under Shane Beamer. Rasul Faison ran well. Oscar Attaway had, I think, a couple of runs here for positive yardage. Lenoris ran like a man possessed. And, of course, Matthew Fuller ran like a guy that he ran with the tenacity that I don't know if I've seen since Corey Boyd. I really feel like that is somebody that's playing his way into a potential number 1 spot. The passing game was okay. There were some things in there that I liked, some things I didn't like. But your only points came in the first half on a Matthew Fuller, I believe it was a 73-yard run, longest run of the season from scrimmage, and probably will be the longest run of the season from scrimmage. Hopefully that's not true at the end of the year, but as of right now, that's the longest run from scrimmage. And it wasn't just an aberration, and it wasn't like if you take that run away, then it's a very subpar night. No, this was a very good night for the offense on the ground. I'm going to pull up the stats here and go back to the other night. I really thought Rasul Faison was running just as much, if not more so, like a number 1 back than Matthew Fuller was. Both did very well on the ground. But again, just you have one highlight followed by a low light, and that's the passing game. And I think it goes back to the offensive line. This unit has just been so inconsistent, and it has been so head-scratching that at some point or another, something has got to change. Too many pre-snap penalties, too many mistakes, like the opening snap, which was fumbled. And that, again, led to 3 points for LSU. LSU won the game by 10, by the way. So if you take those off the board, who knows what happens, but 17-10 is a lot easier to overcome in under 2 minutes than 20-10 is. But when you can't pass protect, it doesn't really matter what the score is. 3-0 or 10-7. That feels pretty insurmountable. At least it didn't on the Bayou. But Sellers was 15 of 27 for 124 yards and an interception. you've seen better performances out of him, but again, when the pass protection breaks down as badly as it did, it's understandable. Matthew Fuller had 7 rushes for 83 yards. Faison 13 rushes for 68. Sellers carried the ball 22 times for 19 yards. That being said, though, his longest was 12 yards. You got to remember, in college football, they count sacks as rushing yardage, whereas in the NFL, and I don't know why the NCAA won't do this. In the NFL, sack yards are their own yards, and they don't count against rushing yards. It's idiotic that college football does this, but that's why that number looks so bad right now. They mixed it up a little bit, though. I'll give Shula credit here. He did mix it up. Jared Brown, Brian Rowe, and Oscar Attaway all had carries after the first 3. Each had 1 carry. Attaway, I thought he had a good night running, but he only had 1 carry. Let's see. Of course, I was sitting up in the far upper deck. Felt like I needed binoculars to be able to see the game. But Fuller and Faison really had good nights. The fact that they lined up Jared Brown as a running back, I thought that was pretty creative by Shula and Sean Elliott, because it gained 12 yards, and it wasn't one of those reverses. No, they lined him up next to Sellers in the gun, and he ran left and got a first down. Brian Rowe had a reverse. He got 9 yards on that. Would like to see a little bit more involvement from Nick Harbor. He had 2 catches the other night for 36 yards and a long of 20, average of 18. That is frustrating because there's so much that he can do. I'm not saying that he needed to be like Trey'Dez Green the other night, who had 8 catches for 119 yards and a touchdown. But, when you've got a guy that's 6'5", has track speed, world-class track speed, and, oh, by the way, I don't know where all this stuff about his hands not being good came from. He has really good hands. And, oh, yeah, he has I believe a 220-pound frame on him that he does use from time to time to bulldoze people. They need to get him the ball more. Brady Hunt had 4 catches for 25 yards, his longest being an 11-yard reception. That tight end play where they run a tight end crossing route toward the sideline has destroyed defenses all season long. I don't care if it's Brady Hunt, I don't care if it's Jordan Dingle or Mo Brown. They need to run that play more and more because it continues to work. And that leads me toward the end of the game where it's 4th down and 4. You know you're going for it. They call a comeback to the sideline, and they ran it for Dre Jacobs, who had 2 catches for 18 yards the other night, and it was broken up. That play was frustrating because, again, you should have run, if I had been Shula, I would have run 2 plays, one of 2 plays. I would have run Lenoris to the outside because LSU was getting beat on the ground. Or I would have run that crossing route to Brady Hunt, or I guess a screen to Brady Hunt, because it works. And until it is stopped, don't stop running it. But Shula did get aggressive there at the end. I guess you could commend him for that, but it just wasn't enough. And I think Lenoris all season has been hearing footsteps. And that led to Sunday afternoon when it was announced around 12:30, right around when I got home, that offensive line coach Lonnie Teasley had been relieved of his duties and that Sean Elliott is now once again the offensive line coach for the Gamecocks. I don't like it when someone gets fired because, from a personal standpoint, I've been fired before. I know that feeling way too well. That feeling of uncertainty, that feeling of, oh my God, what am I going to do to feed my family? Where do I go next? Are we moving? What next? But unfortunately, the resume for him as South Carolina's offensive line coach warranted this. Too often, Lenoris Sellers has been on the run, plays have broken down, the run game has not been there, but one of the main things has been pre-snap penalties or even in-play penalties. Too many holding calls, too many false starts, too many penalties, especially on the road. 13 penalties against LSU the other night, 14 a few weeks ago at Missouri. You cannot win on the road in the SEC doing that. And that is what would wind up killing drives. You would gain 5, you would gain 8, you would gain 3. Flag thrown, holding, flag thrown, false start. And it backed Carolina up. And for whatever reason, Mike Shula just did not seem to have an answer for getting backed up. That raises a few eyebrows there, but hopefully a few things will get corrected here and there. Lenoris can have time going forward, and Elliott will make an impact. I think he will. How big of an impact remains to be seen. We heard today from Shane Beamer that Sean Elliott was lined up right across from the center, basically on every play, barking, blowing the whistle, clapping, yelling, doing anything he could to create a pre-snap distraction to make sure that these guys are more disciplined. And I think Sean is the right fit. We've seen him coach an offensive line to open up 1,000-yard running backs twice. The first being in 2010 with Marcus Lattimore, the second, of course, being 2013 with 2013 with Mike Davis. Is there a running back in that room right now that has the talent that Lattimore and Davis had? No. But does a Sean Elliott coach line help? Yeah, I think so. Time will tell. You certainly hate it for Lonnie Teasley because, by all accounts, everybody loves him. He's a great guy, great family man, and in some areas he will be missed. He's a great recruiter, but there's no point in having someone on staff who can recruit great talent but can't develop it. Sean Elliott, we've seen, has been able to recruit great talent and can develop it. So excited about that, and I think Elliott will be the offensive line coach moving forward. I don't think they'll conduct a search after the end of the year. I think they'll be looking for a new tight ends coach. Sean, however, is still going to be active in that role throughout the course of this season. And hopefully the second half of the season, Carolina will be able to make improvements and start getting more drives going that result in points and will result in more wins. Because right now, the point total through 7 games of Mike Shula is not good. So unless Carolina starts opening it up on the scoreboard offensively, because you have to remember there have been a lot of games this year where Carolina has scored touchdowns either on defense or special teams. Beamer ball, that's what we've been seeing a lot of this season. You cannot rely on that, however, in the SEC. Your offense has to do the job. No other way to put it. Another thing that happened the other night, James Franklin was relieved of his duties as the head coach of Penn State. Actually, that was right around the time that Lonnie Teasley got fired. What that does is it allows uncertainty to fall upon another program. And when that happens, if you're Shane Beamer and you've got guys who are either interested in Penn State or committed to Penn State on the recruiting trail, this is your time to pounce. You have to go out and take full advantage of it. What was it that led to such a big recruiting class in 2009. It was Tommy Bowden being fired from the upstate school and Philip Fulmer being fired from Tennessee. Those two events made huge impacts. Without those happening, I don't know if you have 3 years in a row of 11 wins. Now, Penn State is not in the SEC, and they're north of the Mason-Dixon line, whereas, of course, in South Carolina, we are deeply rooted in the Deep South in the SEC. But that being said, here's an opportunity. Find a way to take advantage of it. Hopefully, Carolina and Shane Beamer will do that. Time will tell. What do we have to look forward to against Oklahoma? Well, another good defense, of course, and an offense that, in spite of the anomaly which happened against Texas, has been playing very, very good this year. John Mateer, before his injury, was probably the leading candidate for the Heisman Trophy. Will he be back to 100% against Carolina? Time will tell. But if you're a Carolina fan, of course, the feeling is, well, he was terrible against Texas. That means he's going to come back and be lights out against Carolina, because that's how it always happens. 12:45 kickoff against the Sooners. I believe they are a 4-point favorite on the road. Carolina needs to come home and do what they did and do what we did in the running game, and we need to do some of the things we were doing last year in the passing game. To do that, Elliott is going to have a big impact. It can happen, but time will tell. Hopefully, Mike Shula will be able to be a little bit more creative with his play calling. If Lenoris is able to have time and the offensive line opens up more running lanes, we shall see. Because through 7 games, it has not been good. Shane, I think, got back into a lot of people's good graces the other day because he did something that, let's be honest, is out of character for him. He does not like making coaching changes, and he hasn't made a coaching change mid-season since before he became the head coach at South Carolina. He has made one now, and it is a massive, massive position that he has moved. I think he put the right man in charge of it. I think it will pay off, but again, we'll find out on Saturday and for the rest of the season going forward. Hopefully Carolina can get a win and cool a lot of heads, because right now Carolina is 3-3. A lot of people were thinking that the game next week against Alabama was going to be kind of a titanic showdown between the SEC heavyweights. Well, right now, it's kind of looking like just a blip on the radar. But the best thing you can do for yourself right now is go out and get a win. And there's no time like the present, and they need to do that against Oklahoma this weekend. Again, 12:45 kickoff, so get a good night's sleep on Friday night and get out to Williams-Brice and enjoy the fair after the game, but be there early, be there loud, and hopefully we'll come out with a win.